must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Viewers and the comrades, the people, the Pan-African people of Africa, and mainly the people of Kenya. Elections in Africa create difficulties. Everywhere in Africa, you find conflicts emanating from elections. Results declared, the loser does not come out to concede. Elections, if not well managed, can trigger the worst crisis for any nation in Africa. It is therefore very prudent for the people of Kenya not to buy populist ideas and forget the hinge point of electoral reforms, electoral injustices, electoral systems, mechanisms that can change Kenya and bring a credible results of an election where the losers and the winner will agree this was a fair contest. Given that circumstances, the circumstances that surround our badly managed elections, Kenya faces this challenge. A referenda of reducing MPs to zero does not solve your problem, because that problem of Kenya is a structural challenge. It's a structural challenge in the sense that the structures themselves give access to more money stolen, to more money hidden, to more money misappropriated by various institutions. Therefore, to have credible electoral reforms, credible electoral systems, credible electoral mechanisms will resolve 1/3 of the Kenya's problems, in that we shall have credible, proportionally elected people who represent all the views of the people of Kenya. That is my take. And that's the take of anybody who looks at the current situation, that any group that would come up and does not discuss the question of elections in Africa and in Kenya as a case study, and use it and look at how many dead bodies do we always collect when we mention the word elections. It is all over Africa. In Uganda, it is happening. In Zimbabwe, as we speak now, they are on the streets of Harare. It's because of elections. They want to come and overthrow and break down everything in Zimbabwe. It's elections. So elections in Africa create conflicts. But how can we stop violence before and after elections? Is through proportional representation of the model of South Africa, which has held elections, but there's peace on the streets of the cities. Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you very much, my people of Kenya. That's my message. I stand to be corrected, but I think it is only until you get a proportional representation system that will deliver every part of this country into your house of representation, into your elections, is when stability and tranquility will be permanent forever in this country. Thank you. wherever you are in the world, thank you very much for watching Diplomatic Leaks from Punchline Africa Television, the only television station in Africa that talks about Africa, cares about Africa, what ails Africa, what destroys Africa. What can we do better to change the lives of the people of Africa? Punchline Africa Television is determined in its mission to make sure that Africa becomes a conflict-free zone, no regime change, regime change free. We chase George Soros away back to America. Africa is at the verge of one of the worst pandemics, Covid-19. It has broken so many people's souls. It has broken the livelihood of everybody, changing the social status of this continent. This morning, my team, my panel, will be discussing in Diplomatic Leaks, does Africa need elections during this pandemic? Do you need elections? You are an African somewhere. You are struggling with COVID-19. Do you want to go Malawi way? Do you want to go Tanzania? Do you want to go Mali, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Uganda, Somalia? Those are the countries that have elections, that have come under COVID-19 spell. What way forward, therefore, for these countries? What are the options left for these countries? What can we do that can change, that can persuade some countries to avoid a state of despondency? Many countries in Africa are heading there. After COVID-19, several states in Africa will undergo a state of despondency. There will be huge demands on the people. Demands of reforms, democratic demands, political, social, economic demands that will come with the healing, or that will come with the disease that seem to be heading towards an endemic status. Believe me or not, I think this COVID-19 will become an endemic. It's gonna live with us for the rest of our lives. Like a malaria, like a cholera, typhoid, asthma. These diseases are here with us. Tuberculosis. These diseases are with us. Are we in the same shape? Are we in the same direction that we have had before with tsetse flies, sleeping sickness, the waterborne diseases that are plenty on the continent of Africa? Therefore, this morning, my panel consists of my co-host, Miriam Ogutu. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, my co-host. Next is Daniel Wesonga. You have been joined by Thompson Oromba Onyango from Kisumu. And the last, the panel is with the chaplain, conflict resolution himself. This subject is very dear to him, Professor Jared Onyari. is very close to his heart. The trigger of conflicts. The trigger of conflicts. Elections during post-COVID-19 will trigger a conflict. Scientific elections will trigger a conflict. Like it, hate me is a hard ball, and I've placed it before Miriam to take us slowly but carefully on this journey towards the temple of Jesus Christ in Jerusalem. The chaplain will tell us whether a scientific election is possible on the continent of Africa. If we can argue because of physical elections, real man to man, umundu humundu elections, what about a remote control election where you have to convince your voters by radio? How many people in Africa listen to radio? The Pygmies in Congo forest know that Mobutu left presidency. I was reading one of the reports in Africa, and I discovered that the Pygmies don't know that Mobutu left Congo. They are still in the forest. They are Congolese. You saw Kabila and the Tshisekedi during the elections. He said 4 million voters in northeastern Congo did not vote because there was Ebola. Up to today, they have never voted. Will elections, does Africa, first of all, need elections? My panel, I hand you back and I become a participant. To Miriam, bring it on.
All right, thank you, Doctor, there for that introduction. Now, 2020 was supposed to be a busy year for Africa. Voters across the continent were to take part in presidential, parliamentary, or even municipal elections at least 22 countries in the continent, starting with the Comoros that happened in January and ending with presidential and parliamentary elections in Ghana in December. COVID-19 has, however, thrown everything into the works, and of course, 5 countries have gone ahead with the elections. 9 have postponed. A dozen more up in the air in the last couple of months. 4 countries in Africa have had elections, or more than that. We've seen Guinea, Cameroon, and Mali who've had their legislative votes. And in April, Mali had its second round legislative votes, and Benin did the same for the local elections there in May. And we saw Malawi had a repeat of the presidential elections in June, as well as Burundi had their presidential elections there in June. And in all cases, the government took some proactive measures. This included the regular cleaning polling stations, the mandatory use of masks and gloves for election officials, temperature checks at polling stations, and the provision of hand washing facilities for voters and social distancing in queues. Is that enough to give confidence to the rest of African countries who have their elections pending to continue with the elections this year as had earlier been scheduled? And we see there are also some upcoming elections, which we shall look at, Doctor. That is Uganda, which is next year. And also we have the elections in Somalia that have been postponed, I think, and also Tanzania is set to go to its elections on October 31st, as well as Ivory Coast is set to go to its elections on October 31st, at the same date there. So those are just some of the things that we shall be looking at here today. And we've seen in cases like Burundi, where elections were held, they went to the elections. I think the country had about 42 cases. After that, right now, Burundi has over 300 cases, perhaps not as much, but there was a considerable increase after going to the election. So that, Doctor, that's where we are this morning.
Thank you very much. I open the lead. You ask me whether Africa needs elections or not, it's useless. I know Professor Onyari will say we need them, but for what use? I have read Karl Marx. I've read Webster, Max, Weber, Karl Marx, Socrates, Aristotle, the Plato Republic. I want any of you to tell me where it says you should have elections every 5 years. If there is any professor, you have dug out all the books on planet Earth, show me. Show me that you must have elections every 5 years. I've read them inside out. I've seen the dangers of a repeated election every 5 years. If you look at the rate of the empire of Oyo, Benin, Ashanti, Buganda Empire, Kingdom, Bunyoro, Kitana, Ankole, the Toro Mugabe. If you look at the Alimad up in the Sudan, the British Sudan, if you look at the Egyptian pharaohs, was there an election? But they had a very stable leadership. Shaka Zulu conquered the rest of Southern Africa. Lobengula, did he have elections? The Tutsi dynasty that controls all the way from Natal through Bujumbura, Rwanda. Museveni is part of Museveni, the Tutsi dynasty, all through to DRC Congo, Banyamulenge. I'm just summarizing for you. And this material is here. Here, did they have elections? Show me. The Kikuyu, the Mumbi house of those days. Show me where they had the elections. That they stood in a queue, prepared the people. After every harvest, how were leaders selected before? It is very important that we tell Africans the truth, that they are yapping. This question of election was brought by Kraft, Dr. Livingstone, Captain Lugard, H.M. Stanley. Angalia hapo, hawa watu walikuja na election. Bishop Hannington, that for a community that had enslaved us, that had bought us as slaves, brought a chain of slavery, tied it on us. That chain of slavery is called election. Does it shake you as an African on the panel today that it is only during elections in Africa that there is bloodshed flowing, that it is all the conflicts of Africa have an election element coming in? Does it shake you? Do you as an African seated on this panel, look at how much Kenya has lost, how much blood Kenya has lost since 1992. How many people have we lost? How many of you saw the pangas brought out on the road in Naivasha? The church burning in Eldoret. Mombasa, people being killed. Kibera, because of elections. Why has Uganda had so many skeletons in Luwero Triangle? It's because of elections. Yes. The election. Does Africa therefore need election? If election is bringing bloodshed, you need it. Why don't you avoid it? Why don't you find alternatives of Africans mixing election, results of Machiavelli, results of Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, put that Fiore, Karl Marx, and put it together and mix it with an African hybrid system which can stabilize. You can see where I'm ending, a handshake. Are people in Kenya not smiling? They are smiling because there's a handshake. By now, Raila and us, we would be on running battles. We don't know where we would be. The government was determined to make him run out of town. Yes, we don't know who would have banned who. But we had an African solution for Africans of the handshake. We forgot about it. Today, Kenya is peaceful because there was a handshake. Today, Kenya is talking together. And that's my submission.
Right, thank you so much, Professor. Doctor has brought out a lot of issues there. How do you respond? Just pick one of the things that he's mentioned there, and Doctor is truly convinced that Africa, we don't need election. What do you say to that?
Does Africa need election during the COVID? That's what we are discussing. Mm-hmm. Why is that question coming? It is because it's the pandemic, which has restricted movement of people, which has put the curfew, which has interfered with our economy, the economies of respective African countries. And you have heard me say before that democracy per se is not the best system of government, but we don't have any which can replace it. He has kind of argued of a monarchical system of government, but he should be told that the fact that people did not complain, sometimes people are not happy with monarchies. You become there until you become monotonous. So in Africa, we have constitutional politics, which begins with elections. And the countries which progress are the countries which have periodic and timely elections. But COVID-19 has now interfered that we cannot be able to have. You know, I am a firm believer you cannot move from me even an inch of participatory kind of politics, participatory kind of development. So the pandemic has come. The last time we ever had a pandemic was 1918, 1920 there, the Spanish flu. And the 2020, we are having another one. When another pandemic will come, God knows. So what I'm trying to say, let all the partners, the way you say that, leave no one behind, come around the table, agree this pandemic cannot give us free and fair election. If we cannot get free and election because people need to campaign, people need to have civic education, people need to be educated, then we agree what we need to do. And that's why he was recommending, and I am with him, that we can have handshake kind of politics and agree, this is a pandemic, your time has expired, now can we have a handshake maybe for a period of 1 year or 2 years to see how this pandemic takes us? And then we can be able to go for that kind of election. But he has also said that can we have scientific elections in Africa? A joke. What is the internet coverage in Africa? So if some areas are not covered, he has given a very good case that in Democratic Republic of Congo, more than 1 million people did not vote because of the Ebola. So the government which is in place is there with no participation of those kind of people. So my recommendation here are not different from what Dr. Masanga is trying to say, that we can sit down instead of having a sham, instead of having a mockery, is to sit down with all the parties, because Africa is our continent. Kenya is our country. Uganda is a country of the African people. Tanzania the same, Somalia the same. They can always agree. If people sit around the table and they agree to sit, they can always find a way forward on what we need to do with this pandemic, with this election during this COVID. So my recommendation here is this COVID will not give us free and fair election simply because people are restricted. People are fearful. People are traumatized. People are displaced. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much, Daniel. Do we need to go through elections that are pending? As I said there earlier, about 22 countries in Africa set to have their elections this year. Some already have, and some are waiting to have the elections this year, whether parliamentary, presidential or municipal elections. Do we need to see these elections continue during this period of COVID-19?
Yes, thank you, Miriam, first of all. And my answer is no, we don't need election during this particular period, because whatsoever the results would be from an election which is held in an environment such as now, it will be a very flawed process. It will not represent the views of the majority. It will not be credible at by any measure. And of course, when you talk about elections are often promoted as a means to preserve stability and long-term peace within societies. But of course, that one has always been disapproved when we do have elections in countries that have been facing social instabilities, countries that have been through a lot of conflicts and a lot of widespread violence. It seems that these elections have been adding more wood to the fire to ensure that the chaos and the amount of anarchy skyrockets to the highest level. So I think from my perspective, elections were well meant to preserve good governance, leadership, and representation of the people on a very equitable measure. But how it has turned out is that in Africa, elections have always been the greatest bone of contention between parties that compete for power. So from where I stand, I feel like as Africa, as a continent, we still don't have stronger institutions. We still don't have stronger values to fully embrace the kind of democracy that we borrowed from the Western nations. It's like we are sitting for an exam, trying to solve the same problem, but we do have different questions. Where the problems we have in Africa here are not the problems that people in Europe, people in America, people in the Middle East have. When an election comes, the problem that we want to address here in Africa, first of all, is better roads, better schools. We want to make sure that electricity reaches the remotest villages in the country. But in Europe, these are developed countries, and the agenda seems to be something else, something different from where we have. These are countries that are way, way ahead of us in terms of civilization. So I think what we need to do as an African people is, first of all, come up with a very, very stable structures, and that will enable elections to be quite worthwhile and quite benefiting to the common citizen. But in situations where we do have a state of anarchy, we do have conflict, we do have chaos, and especially also a time like this when we have a corona pandemic, I don't think it's a very wise decision to bring any kind of democracy. We first of all need to have stability, and then when we do have stability and everyone is at their peace of mind, then even the citizens, the voter themselves, will have the very clear mind and conscience to cast their ballot, knowing too well what they want in terms of representation and the implementation of the manifestos, the election.
Daniel, thank you so much. You brought up so many issues that I think some of which even Dr. mentioned there earlier, we shall interrogate as we continue with this conversation there, because you've seen elections work in other places outside of Africa. So why is it that Africa that can't work? So that is, we will continue interrogating that as we continue. But I want to hear the opening comments there and thoughts of Samson. Should we continue with the elections for the countries that have their elections pending over this year? in Africa. Should we continue during this period of coronavirus, Samson?
Yes, thank you, Mir. As to whether election or not, to me, is a no. First of all, you cannot separate an African election from violence. You cannot separate an African election from bribing, from bloodshed, from chaos. Africa already has a lot of things on the table to settle. There is high rate of unemployment. There is there is lack of trust in our own system.
Samson,
high mortality. Yes.
During COVID-19, should we continue with these elections? With these other issues we'll look at as we continue looking at individual countries.
I was coming to that.
Okay.
I was saying,
go ahead.
We already have a lot. We already have a lot to deal with as a continent. Mm-hmm. Things to do with high mortality rate. Now COVID-19 is coming at such a time. So even in the biggest democracies like they exist in the West, like in Britain, there is a negotiated kind of democracy. There is monarch. Do we vote during the? Do we vote for a queen, for example? It is a negotiated kind of arrangement. So to me, let us strengthen our systems, like my brother Dan said. Let us solve the crisis that we have, the unemployment rate, so that after COVID, we shall talk about elections. But not currently. Let us on continuing this case that we have. Then later on we shall talk about elections. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much there, Samson. So, Doctor, there seems to be a general agreement that during this period of COVID-19, from what I gather, that perhaps elections is not a very good idea. But Prof there is not completely against the idea of having elections here in Africa. So the issues, Doctor, that they have raised there, of course, we look at an individual country like Uganda, where the Electoral Commission on June 16th announced that owing to the rising number of cases of COVID-19 in the country and the measures in place to try and contain the spread of virus, 2020-2021 general election campaign was going to be disrupted as all life in Uganda has been affected by the virus. The Electoral Commission said traditional outdoor mass campaign rallies would not be permitted. All candidates from the presidential to the local village level will have to find some other ways to reach the electorate with their messages. The news media and the new virtual digital media were alternatives suggested by the East African, by the Electoral Commission there in Uganda. So let's just pause there for a moment, Doctor, and address these issues. So the Electoral Commission in Uganda said the news media, that is the conventional media, the television and the radio, and also the virtual digital media, which is the new media, social media, basically an online platforms, will be the alternative in terms of, campaigning. How is this practical?
Copy. It is the original copy, which was given to me by the late Wapakaburo. And may his soul rest in peace. Here we are.
Doctor, if you could read to us the elections laws.
The first article, we have a problem with the internet, I think.
Yes, on our side. Our internet is having a bit of a problem. I don't know if it's enough for us to continue or we take a break or we continue. I'm being told we can continue as they observe it.
Yeah, because I can't see you talk.
Mm-hmm. But I've been signaled. We just continue. Yes.
This constitution is very clear on how you can conduct an election. Now, the question of Uganda, we are going in it when we have not changed it. We have not changed the Electoral Act to talk about elections, about scientific. We are introducing a word that is going to bring people on the streets. Yes, at least you people in Kenya, you are lucky. You have another 2 years to go. And those 2 years, perhaps, those 2 years, you will have found a solution. Now, I want to challenge Prof. And the Prof always likes my challenge, and he also challenges me back. Let's have an intellectual discourse. Tell me, do you want a complaints after elections, or you want an election that is smooth? In your own assessment, Prof, do you think the Uganda elections or any other election, the Tanzanian election, Somali election, Ivory Coast, will be welcomed by all masses? The answer to it is no. The one of Uganda, you know why President Museveni does not know the trick behind why people power has agreed fully to participate. He doesn't know. But me, who studied George Soros and his mechanisms outside, I have called Dr. Rwakana Rugoda to talk to me. I will tell him the problem behind it. Believe me or not, these guys have been looking for a way to come out, and they got it. And after the February 2021, they will come out in huge numbers on the streets of all cities of the Republic of Uganda, saying we have had enough. Because you know now they are going in, they are picking nomination papers. They are not saying the irregularities are there. Nobody is complaining about irregularities. But you wait after the election is done. Professor, you will see everybody on the street to say there were irregularities. And I call upon the people to come to the city. We want to demonstrate. That's one. Two, the framers of whatever post-COVID strategy, intelligence strategy, are very clear. There are some African countries that they target. One of them in East African region, there are two. One has escaped. No, actually there are three. One has escaped. It had an election, but it had a wound, a very dangerous wound. That is Burundi. There is no Western power hemisphere who wanted the Burundi government president to be alive for even 1 minute. You know that very well. They hated Nkurunziza. And God answered their dream. Oh no? He answered it, took Nkurunziza. Now the next person they don't want, whom they are not telling the president, is the one of President Museveni of Uganda. I speak neutrally, as a neutral person, because I'm not taking part in the election. I don't want it. I don't want to be anywhere there. My fight for bringing the diaspora to vote, it has been accepted. Ugandan diaspora can go to the Kenya High Commission Embassy of Uganda and cast their vote. That's all I wanted, because we contribute to that economy. We send like almost 300 billion shillings to the economy of Uganda yearly. So we have a say. There's no need of a person from America to fly to cast a vote, to stand on a queue for 1 hour or 20 hours or not even able to vote after paying $7,000 of a ticket. I argued my case. We pressurized the government. The government has now allowed the diaspora to vote. Let them vote, and I wish them good luck. But for me, Miriam, Professor will advise me better. As a conflict resolution man, the trigger of conflict is the Ugandan scientific election.
All right.
But the government was found in catch-22. It could not. It means if I were President Museveni, I would have sacked all my ministers. All my ministers, are you hearing me? All my ministers who give me advice on legal aid, legal advice. I would have sacked them because they saw this coming. They should have prepared, changed that section, that if there is a state of emergency, this is what has happened to protect the term limit, the term of the president must be protected under state of emergency. So it means somebody in Uganda has left on the job. That's all I can submit.
All right, and Professor, if we were to go with that suggestion there by the Electoral Commission there in Uganda, that the candidates there campaign through the news media and also other virtual digital media that is available in Uganda. So let's just see at the situation here. Now, the main complication is in the ratio of the candidates to television and radio airtime, given that current more than 400 members of parliament they have there in Uganda, and the assumption will be, as of any average of about 4 candidates who will be contesting for the same seat in each parliamentary seat. So that will be about 1,700 candidates across the country, right? And no matter how well-timed radio and television is allotted, I think this will be difficult to see how each of these candidates will be scheduled to appear on any of the country's 200 radio stations, and also to accommodate all presidential, parliamentaries, and the LC candidates on radio and TV will require that all regular programming be rescheduled there. The normal programming will be, of course, affected and suspended for the duration of the election campaign. So with having all this in mind, Professor, how practical are these scientific elections, especially these campaigns through the media there in Uganda?
Yeah, thank you, Miriam. To be very practical, it is not. And if there's one thing that we are reading from the same script with Dr. Masanga is on African election during this time for COVID. Election can be it depends on how it is carried. It can be a trigger of conflict. And all elections which will be carried out during this time for COVID-19, this is a potential conflict, because people are going to say we were not given the field was not leveled, this and this was not being done. That's why I have said, and I want this point to come out very clear. The term for President Museveni ends on this time. As per the constitution, because in Africa, I've said we have constitutional politics, and which leads to elections. Now, what do we do now that we have got a pandemic? They will amend the constitution because we have a working parliament, which will secure the president position until we have sorted out this pandemic. And then we can go for a free and fair elections. Getting the number of the candidates, it is practically impossible because this television and the radios are in the hands of people doing business. So nobody is going to give his TV so that it is a campaign. So what is this? I'm trying to say that it is very unfortunate that the pandemic has come into the world and Africa as such. Some of the countries are having elections. If we don't manage them properly, there will be a lot of regime change. And this is where they are coming in. So if they bring the parties to the table and agree extending for 1 year, 2 years for stability and for us to have free and fair and credible and transparent election, is better off than talking about scientific election when there are no mechanisms which has been put in place. Because immediately you will have those scientific elections and they are concluded. You will see people in the streets because they will say, oh, in our area we did not fail, the computers, you saw what happened in Kenya, we tried to go in this. So those scientific, remove them, let the people converse, let us secure the term office of the presidents who are in office. We can have a credible election next year or the other year when all parties have agreed. But what I'm trying to say, let parties come to the table and agree. So what do they do? Do they want that scientific election? Are there machineries which have been put in place for that? When people sit around the table as a conflict expert, I can tell you, they will find the way forward. Right. There should be a conversation. There should be a debate. There should be a discussion. They will come out of on what to do.
But it has to be inclusive. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
All right. And just before I ask Daniel the next question, we see I have some breaking news here. And this is from Senator Sakaja. He says, I wish to state that I have resigned from the ad hoc committee on COVID-19, which I have been chairing.
Amen.
I think that is the proper thing to do.
That's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
He should resign from the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the person who was hiding him should also resign from the government.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Because it's not enough to resign from the ad hoc committee. And then now you say ladies' lounge is not there. It seems you are resigning in bad faith. Resign from the entire cabinet, Senate. Cause a by-election. You know, Sakaja was looking for a way of opposing the government in Nairobi. Don't forget, he has got an ambition of one day leading this country. He has told you before. Mm-hmm. He wants to create a chaos. He is not comfortable with being in Jubilee. We know where his roots are. So that's what we know. He wanted to become a leader of majority. How can you become a leader of majority in the Senate? How can you become a chief whip when you haven't even studied 1 inch of a law? He's not a lawyer by any imagination. It's the big body honor.
That is now small. He lost some weight. All right, thank you. Thank you, Doc. So the next question to Daniel. Well, we know that most of radio stations in Uganda are owned by NRM cabinet ministers, MPs, or NRM sympathizers. Will this not favor NRM candidates? Should they take that route? Actually, I think they've started.
Yes, thank you, Miriam. And on the question of holding an election during this period, now, will the election be free, fair, and credible? That's the point of departure. You know, in a situation like this, and especially in a totalitarian regime in Uganda, where President Museveni, for over 3 decades, he has been shifting goalposts so that he sticks onto power. It is really a very a dangerous expedition to undertake, so to say. And I think I stated here before that an election is not a one-day event. An election starts from the registration of voters, voter civilization, and education, and from there from the campaigns to casting the ballot, and it ends when the ballot is counted and the winner is declared. And that process, that is the due process that should be followed in any free, fair, and credible election. When you flout any of those steps, then the whole process will be fraudulent. It will not be credible. It will not represent the will of the people. Now, going back to campaigning on social media, Uganda is a country where at one time, at one point in time, the government has gone against its people to try and suppress them by switching off the social media space, just to suppress the dissident voices that have been calling on President Museveni to act up. So there's no really, there's no hope that this process is going to be free, fair, and credible, given the political environment that captures Uganda right now. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's very unnecessary to go the scientific way, because in one way or another, it will be even more worse than it would have been if people were allowed to cast the ballot the conventional way. So there's no hurry. As Dr. Matsanga has said, as Professor Jared Onyari has said, let us have some kind of caretaker government at this moment in time to look at how they can be able to stabilize the economy as we work to fix the electoral system and the laws, so that once Corona is over, then we can set a date and have free, fair, and credible elections. People will not die if they don't go to elections and as it has been stipulated by the timelines. Mm-hmm. Whatever matters more for Ugandans is a free, fair, and credible elections. And that is how I rest my case on that.
All right, thank you. Thank you there. Samson, are we likely to see a situation where the newspapers there will be like a campaign material, will be like full of posters? Because if that is where they're going to to campaign, then it will be, will that compromise even the content and what other things Ugandans might be wanting really to know, and to the news they'll be wanting to know, because now the newspapers and all the media houses there now will be turned into a campaign tool of some sort. Are we likely to see the content of the news outlets there change significantly?
Thank you, Miriam. You raised a very significant component of a nation, that electronic kind of election. But before we go into that, we must ask ourselves very fundamental questions. One, do we have the infrastructure in place to fast track that kind of election? Do we have, like, what is the percentage of network connectivity in Uganda, for example?
Not very good. Compared to Kenya, not even.
Again, you need to ask yourself how many people access radios, TVs, handsets, and how many people can read newspapers. So electronic kind of election is not possible. My friend Dan raised a very important point. Election is not an event. It is a process that has to take more voter registration, all that, and all that needs civic. It's also an component of civic education. Will we really achieve that using an electoral kind of model? another important aspect that I really want Dr. indulgence in, we need to ask ourselves: we have a pandemic. Who are forcing? Who are funding this kind of outcry that we must just have an election? There is something that happened in Ukraine in 2014, funded by George Soros. The citizens infiltrated the city. The government was run out of town, and there was a total there was like disobedience to the government. There was regime change. People lost their lives. So before we even talk about elections, let us ask ourselves: who are behind this place that want us to have election? Otherwise, we will have another Jasmine revolution taking place in the continent. I rest my case by saying that we need to fight COVID-19 first, and if possible, let us bring opposition and government together to have a negotiated kind of democracy. Thank you.
All right, a negotiated kind of democracy, Doctor. Will that solve the impasse there right now in Uganda? And perhaps you have the constitution. You could just remind us what the law says, the electoral laws in Uganda.
Is very clear. The term of office for the president ends in February. I want to state that the people who advised the president on the constitution should have been sacked long time ago. They did not advise, they did not envisage an emergency where nobody knew that Corona was going to come. But we took things for granted. We should have protected the term of the president. The term. When does the term end? Because if you push it before February, no, after February, then there is an illegality. So why didn't they change this constitution much earlier? Two, Aromba has raised this very seriously. Do we have infrastructure? There is no infrastructure to carry an election, a scientific election in our countries in Africa. The whole of Africa, I don't think there's a country that is still borrowing balloons to put upstairs there. And those balloons disappear after that. You don't have any permanent infrastructure. When you fly from Nairobi, as soon as you touch airspace of a superpower called Britain, Ireland, your phone, whether it is from Kenya, from Bangladesh, Myanmar, Rohingya, Islamabad, Rawalpindi, these are things. It will be noted there is a Pakistani with a phone who has arrived in our airspace. Honestly, there is Matanga with a phone from Kenya who has arrived, he's on aircraft. He's arrived in our airspace. So when you use this number from Kenya to ring 999, they will even know that you are David. And then they will know you are at the airport. This is what we are looking for. Don't tell us these side shows. Yeah. So if you have that type of infrastructure, you can conduct a scientific election. You can call. You remember in Kenya, somebody wanted to conduct a scientific election called Kivitu. Kivitu said the telephone men who, the 10 supervisors have disappeared with the telephone. Do you remember that famous saying by Kivitu, who was the chairman of the Electoral Commission?
ECK.
The people who had the results in Tharaka Nithi,
yes, the famous
are not
Tharaka
answering
Nithi.
their phones. It was in the KICC. I was there.
Stronghold.
That is when Ruto jumped on the table. He stood on the table, almost kicking Kivutu in the chain, in the teeth. And the Kivutu was protected by his General Service Unit to get out because he tried to do a scientific election when the election of Kenya is manual. You must count those votes. Who is going to count those votes? Who is going to be there? Where will the agents be? How near will the agents be? These are questions. How will people campaign? How will you campaign using what? Which dress will you wear? How many people in Africa know the type of dress? Even now, when you tell people what type of shirt Matanga is wearing on this TV, they will tell you it was blue, red, and yellow.
NRM colors.
Yeah.
Except for
Yet
blue.
there is no red color. So let's not lie ourselves that there can be anything. Britain is 1,600 years. Coming to, 1,800 years of democracy, of an election. They have been doing it. But still, they don't use electronic, scientific election. The only thing in Britain, what you can do is I can vote if I have my forms, my ballot paper comes in advance. I can vote for Labour Party. Even when I'm in Nairobi, when I post it by DHL, it will be counted as a vote. That one is done. But the rest of these stupid things in Africa, we are just stupid, it's primitive. In fact, it's old stone age. It's not scientific. You are telling people who don't even have a toilet that you'll have a what? That you'll have they don't. There are some people in Uganda who have no toilet. Then you tell them there will be a radio. What does he buy the radio with? What does he buy a radio with? To be able to listen to the message. Who is going to buy the radios? Is it the Electoral Commission supplying the radios? Where are the radios being stationed? Who will buy the macar? Either batteries. Aye.
So should have Uganda done this the same way as Somalia did then? Because Somali's Electoral Commission has announced that upcoming parliamentary and presidential elections will not take place on time as scheduled. The chairperson of the National Independent Electoral Commission, Halima Ismail Ibrahim, has told the lower house of parliament that political differences, insecurity, flooding, and COVID-19, especially COVID-19, have hampered the Commission's work schedule. The parliamentary elections were scheduled for November 27th, and the president's term ends on February 8th, 2021. Is it not the same date elections in Uganda are supposed to be? Yes. Ibrahim says neither deadline can be met. So Somalia has come to the realization early enough. So is that the turn that...
But Somali, despite the fact that they don't think quickly, they have thought quickly. They are slow thinkers. Yes, they are slow thinkers, but very bright in thinking. When they think, they release their results. Have you seen the English they write on paper? Have you seen the letter from the Foreign Ministry of Somalia? 2 pages. Kenya writes 20 with nothing inside almost. Somalia writes only 2 pages. I saw it in the maritime conflict. The Foreign Minister in Somalia just released 2 pages. For us, we write the real Shakespeare down up to Nottingham, Robin Hood. We come back down to Birmingham. Professor, it is a shamble. Somalia, on this one, they have thought very quickly. But do they have a constitution like a Kenya or Uganda?
Yeah,
no.
The constitution allows them to do that.
They don't even have. They rely on election through selection.
So, and this was the first time they're actually going to have a democratic election.
Yes. But there has never been election in Somalia. It's selection in Somalia. People sit down and select the president, the one they like. So, in a nutshell, Miriam, I am a very convinced human being that elections should never even be conducted in Africa.
So not just because of COVID-19, but just in totality.
Yes, I don't know. It's not.
So what would be the alternative, Doctor? Because we cannot go back to the kingdoms, the monarchs. I think we're way past that now. What will be the alternative?
Bring us there then.
All right. We have arrived.
Whatever we need is not the Western world kind of democracy. We need to have a system of governance. It could be a mix of democracy and our own way, a style of governance, where we find some kind of middle ground.
That hybrid has not worked because we pretend we are democratic and we borrow that, and then we want to mix it with other things down here. It doesn't work. If we choose democracy, let's just go all the way.
One thing we have to agree as Africans is that absolute democracy does not work in this continent. Okay. The moment you give people leeway to present their views, to elect the leaders they want, they give you leaders who are below standards. They give you views that you cannot be implemented, and that is what the views that cannot be implemented, and that is what plunges us into perennial chaos. So one thing we need to do, let's look at the problems that we have as a continent. Let's look at our setting, our societal settings, and the things that we want as a people. Then from there, we can be able to take notes from the Western kind of democracy. We take whatever is more that resonates with us, and whatever that does not fit well with the kind of society that we have, then we have to discard. We have to discard it without even a second thought. So that is what we need in Africa. But imposing absolute democracy, it will not work. It has not worked for the ages since colonialism, and I think a path that we should follow is one where we can tailor our own way of governance.
Professor,
Miriam,
our own way of governance.
Miriam,
yes.
I am in agreement. I'm in agreement with Dr. Masanga to a certain extent, but totally parting with Daniel.
Okay, I want to know to what extent.
Constitutions.
To what extent are you in agreement with the doctor, and the other part that you don't agree with, and then tie it with what Daniel has said.
That we cannot have scientific elections in Africa, not now, not even the foreseeable future, because the infrastructures are not in place. And what I'm trying to say that we have got constitution. They say after this periodic time of we have elections, but now we have got a pandemic. And let me tell you, when a country, Miriam, is in war, you cannot talk about election. That's why Dr. Masanga is trying to say, during time of an emergency, members of parliament, they can be able to amend the constitution and say, for the next 2 years or 1 year, we are not going to have this election because now we have got a pandemic to deal with. That point, because as we have said, an election, Miriam, is a process. It's not one-day event. We must start from by procuring equipment for that election to be carried out. We have to do registrations. We have to have civic education. We have to have the day for casting those votes. They have to be counted. They have to be announced so that everyone is brought on board. But with this COVID-19, it has interfered. So this is where I agree with Dr. Masanga
that election cannot be carried during this time for COVID-19 because they will not be fair, transparent, and credible. Because you will have these elections and you will have people in the streets, and this is where the regime change of George Soros are going to come in. So to me, I am a firm believer, and I'm saying, can we have all the parties to the election, those who want to be to contest and be voted in, with our members of parliament, which they have got a job to do, they can be able to give the way forward. Otherwise, as it is now, don't go for the elections because you are going to bring this continent into more darkness again.
And on top of that, Doctor said that we should just get rid of elections completely in Africa. Do you agree with that?
Saying getting rid of elections, Miriam, is just like saying we remove all the clothes we have and throw them away.
What do you mean?
Were we wearing clothes before the white man came?
we cannot go back to the leaves, Doctor, and the skins.
Were we wearing clothes?
and also, Miriam, a very important point to note.
Show me one African who was wearing clothes. Were we not dying? When we are burying the king Mutesa, Chua, Mwanga, Suna, where did these kings go? God, were they wearing clothes? When we are burying the pharaohs with the pyramids, were they wearing clothes? Let's think as Africans. Have we reached a turning point? You have just done a very big mistake as Africans. Can I tell you the mistake?
Yes.
You just copied Croft, Grant, Abadeas, Thompson. While you were busy copying how they wear a suit and a tie, they were busy planting a flag.
And also, Dr. Matsanga, maybe just to give it an angle, Professor has said that democracy is not the best system of government, but nonetheless, we don't have another system. But look at it from this angle, Professor. You know, as far as the West is driving an agenda of having democracy in Africa, but you also understand that it is the same system of governance that has made African continent to be quite vulnerable to agents of the regime change. You find that a very democratic country with a very visionary leader who doesn't agree with the West, they will always find some way of paying a few people, a few members of the civil society to strategically position and instigate protests. And because we believe in democracy, we cannot quell this kind of rebellion. And just as that, when people are influenced through such underhands that are paid by the foreign agents like George Soros and the likes, you find that good leadership in Africa is toppled. We have a regime change because we believe in democracy. But look at countries where we do have strong leaders who have taken power with a very strong grip. These kind of things cannot happen. They cannot allow people to go into the streets for very, very small reasons. You know, just like any kind of leadership, you know, as a leader, you won't satisfy everyone. Everyone, giving them their interest to their satisfaction. We do have some elements of rebellion, but in a system where we do have this democracy, where we perceive them that the government is totally democratic, they are very vulnerable to these kind of influences. So I think as a continent, democracy has always come to our own detriment.
Miriam, go ahead.
I am in agreement with them. I'm 100% in agreement with them. But what I want to say, let us remove democracy and replace that one. I have not that one say. We tried elections in 2017 in Kenya. You saw what it brought. But when there was goodwill from the Prime Minister and the President, it brought tranquility and stability in a country, and they agreed this is what we need to do to take the country forward. And that's why I am giving the recommendation, regardless when if it appears that it cannot happen, that if we can sit on the table, everybody will bring the ideas. Daniel will bring his, Dr. Masanga will bring his, I will bring mine, you will bring on mine, and we will forge the way forward. We are in agreement in a time like this of COVID-19, we cannot have fair, free, credible elections.
But just
so
now,
what we need to do, let us do inclusivity, involve everybody, and agree what we need to do. Yes, our people were not wearing clothes, we were naked, but now we are wearing those clothes. We throw away and then we start being naked?
no.
No.
That's just a bad idea.
So we must have a common ground.
We go back to the leaves, doctor, to banana leaves. I don't want to wear
doctor,
that.
May I bring an angle?
Professor, how does he know whether he's not naked now? It is only God who decides. Who decides how naked you are.
That is the heart. But we're saying the physical clothes that the white people brought to us. It's working well for us.
For you, you might be thinking you are wearing clothes.
I'm not.
Then I want to ask you one thing.
Doctor.
Hey, when they are going to take you to the mortuary, what do they do?
But then you're dead. But when I'm alive, I need clothes.
No, but do you know whether the clothes are on or not?
No, but I'm dead.
No, I don't know. You don't know which state you are in.
Yes.
There's only one person who knows the state you are in. Because you don't know whether you are dead or you are still alive. You are gone.
Yeah.
So why do you follow the whites, the British, the Americans, the French? You pay them money when you can have your own democracy. I have asked you questions here. Show me one passage in the Plato Republic that says you must have elections every 5 years. Show me. All of you read the books. Show me.
Miriam, let me just have this to say. Since God created human beings, the Abagusi people, where I come from, we have never had a king.
So what
if you know any,
a
king, we have never had a king.
How are you governing?
Someone to roll, but our people believed on consultative, that they will invite these elders, they come together and they sit together, and they have guided our community to this point in time. So what I'm trying to say this one, Africa is faced with a pandemic. We cannot have free and fair elections
right now.
Can we involve anybody? Can we have a conversation? Can we discuss and agree what we need to do? Do we do away with elections the way Dr. Masanga and Daniel are trying to say?
Fair enough. Not
and replace it with what?
Yeah, replace it. Samson, what do we replace this elections with?
A hybrid system.
Still elections. Hybrid, doctor.
No, on marriage.
Okay.
Why do you elect wizards?
Like the Chinese one. That's what you mean.
Wait. Why do you elect corrupt man who goes to eat githeri in his family when he has eaten all the money from the treasury? What the hell? Why don't you just sit down and choose one man and say you leaders for 10 years?
How do we see Dr. Masanga?
That has been working in the communist world. I don't know how viable that is down there.
Listen. Where people here not sitting, you have just said the Kisi don't have a king. Did you allow leprosy to kill Kisi?
No.
Did you allow Kaumpuli, which is the plague?
No.
You know, this is where people like this everywhere. What happened to the plague?
That's why we need our clothes on.
Yes, let's talk the talk. You allow a man who has stolen all the money from the treasury.
Miriam, before the two gentlemen interject, I was making a point.
Doctor is
before the two gentlemen interjected, I was making a point. Yes, I was saying we've had several elections. For example, in Kenya, we've had more than 10 of them. But have they solved our problem? So one thing that we must admit, that after election, the person who becomes number 2 and the person who becomes number 1 are all important. They are followers. So the only thing we need to do is follow the trajectory that, for example, the former Prime Minister and Raila Odinga did. Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta did after 2017. They sat down, brought their supporters together, and said there is Kenya is bigger than our individual interest. Let us sit down and discuss the future of our nation. We've had an opportunity to enjoy peace and tranquility. So even right now, during this particular pandemic time, let us bring our leaders, let our leaders have an honest discussion, and agree that we have a pandemic to deal with. For example, in Mombasa right now, we used to have Joe and Shabal really fighting one another.
Yes,
but because of COVID, they sat down, amassed their resources, brought their resources together in a bid to fight COVID. That is the message that is the precedent that we should be setting.
But Samson, what doctor is saying, even after post-COVID, he's saying elections is something that shouldn't be happening in the African continent. Is that
Miriam,
yes.
Miriam, I think
let me make my point very clear.
Yes.
And I'm going to be honest. Why do you waste 50 billion, 42 billion shillings in one day selecting stupid people? Stupid thieves, wakora, wameiba, that you are preparing an election. Why don't you use the 42 billion to give each county in Kenya a hospital with new windows, new beds? Each hospital will cost about 3 billion, or 1 billion, or a clinic where a helicopter can land and drop medicine and cure people. Why do you waste 42 billion on an election of only 6 hours, where you are electing people like Sakaja? Yes, you answer me. I agree with Aromba. Time has come for us to review whether there is a need for election. Elections can only be held in Britain, America, where people are civilized. We are still cannibals. We cannibalize our people. We beat people. We set fire on people's houses. We set fire on buildings. We cut people's throats. In Africa.
Yes, and Miriam. Yes, Miriam. Just to add the icing on the cake on what Dr. Matsanga and my brother Samson have talked about. If you want to really know that as a people we are not yet ready for democracy, then
but democracy
for
is here,
leaders like Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta coming together through the handshake, be pretty sure if their followers were people who are democratically empowered and people who believe in ideals and principles, then you wouldn't have expected that these people will come together to support both President Uhuru Kenyatta and the ODM leader. Because if they were people who advance democratically, then it means that these people could not have accepted the call to work with President Uhuru Kenyatta. So if other people consensus, if leaders can come together and agree on a formula rather than immersing people in needless elections, then that is a good system for us. Let leaders come on the negotiation table, agree on a number of things here and there, and then be able to give people direction. then we shall have a very peaceful environment when it comes to sourcing out leadership and governance. I think that is the best way forward.
I have asked you one question.
Yes, Doctor.
And I want to ask it again.
Yes.
Aromba raised a very good question. Do we have social structures? Do we have structures, infrastructure? Didn't you ask that question? Aromba, you asked infrastructure. We don't have infrastructure in Africa.
We don't.
When a man loses election in Africa, he doesn't go home. He goes to look for a rungu.
Yes. And going to the bush.
Yes, he goes to the bush. You wait, when Ruto loses the election in 2022, he will threaten us with so many things.
Already the supporters are talking like
threaten us to go to the bush, Museveni way. Are you talking frankly here or you are hiding? Because when we mention this name, some people hide. Are we talking frankly? You will go to the bush. You will tell us, I'm going to go to the bush. You have stolen my election. We don't lose the election and go home. We don't even send a message to the winner. And the winner does not send a message to the loser. This is medium what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. We used to have those days when Bazungu just left. I am one of the products taught by Bazungu. Father Grimes, Father Townsend. My headmaster was Townsend. The headmaster of Manjas High School was Townsend. If your legs are white, you go back to look for Vaseline before you go to the classroom. Have you seen the hygiene we had? That's why I'm still like this. With a baby face, yet I have grown up big children, bigger than actually all of you on the screen, except the professor. I'm telling you, if your legs were white, Headmaster Townsend will send for the prefect to check you out of the class, to go and wash the legs. If your dormitory had no bed covered properly, you have left without covering the dormitory blanket. Walai, you don't go to the school. You don't see the chemistry school class more. So, what did we do? We wake up in the morning, clean the bed, clean the dormitory, clean the lockers, pick rubbish around the dormitory. And the Mzungu himself wakes out Matanga time of 4. That's why I'm still waking up at 4. All of you here will see me. If you try tonight, I am online at 4. By 8, I've finished what Miriam wants, or before 7. If she wants this, I've got an answer. That's how Bazungu work. Here we have lazy people like a Chepukati, who is waiting to steal again money. We have lazy people like a Kombe, a thief, a beauty without beauty. That one there. Eh? Who calls now President Uhuru Kenyatta names. And you people want us to go into that. What is the use of an election? An election that is going to bring you the city mortuary. You are giving notes to the city mortuary to increase the beds. That's the election you are looking for, isn't it? Mr. Web Professor, you want an election where a tent is built around the city mortuary. We don't want that type of election. If that is the election, I want to ask, and I want to leave this question, because time is running. We have 7 minutes. I want to ask this question to my panel. Today is challenging day. You not manage me until we can start again tomorrow. Why is China, a very poor country, 30 years ago, with one rice scheme in Kibimba, sharing rice with us Ugandans, and the pigs, rearing pigs, pork meat exported to China to feed those hungry, those small young, no, those ones there. Today, China is the richest. Does China hold elections? Does China have MPs? These men here, Sakaja style. Do you have Sakaja style in China? That there is a member of parliament driving a Range Rover. You remove your card for the MP to park my food. Toa gari mheshimiwa. Toa gari mheshimiwa nataka kupark. Does China, and be honest with me, Miriam, and you are the hostess, be honest with me, tell the truth. China does not have an MPs. Have you ever seen a member of parliament of China? China only has one week in a year. They sit, they distribute the SGR money, which we hammer here. They send us more money, which we hammer. They send us another money, we hammer. They send us another money in Zambia. Now Zambia has sold it back to Victoria Falls. Livingstone Falls is sold to China. Now, tell me, that's one question. Look at Cameroon. You call that an election. Paul Biya said we conduct it quickly. You know, as we speak now, there are some people in Cameroon pretending to be MPs. Is that, do we need election? When others are dying in the bush in Cameroon, I rest my case.
Thank you so much. Professor, do we need elections as we conclude?
Yes. Yes, we need election. We need elections which are free, democratic, and transparent and credible elections. And if it has been done elsewhere, the way you said Abasungu, then we can do it. And when you talk about Sungu, there are no people who kill each other until they reach where they are. So, I've said democracy is democracy. Democracy.
You are saying we should continue killing each other until we reach the status of Abasungu.
Hold on.
Yes.
Democracy is a process. And he has said the Prime Minister and the President, the best thing which happened to this country was the handshake. I supported day, night, morning, evening. Why? They identified things which separate us. Corruption being one of them, which Dr. Masanga is talking about. Inclusivity. That's why we are going to revisit on our constitution as a modern people and bring more people on the table. If people are fighting for positions, let us agree that let us sit on the table and share these resources, all of us. He has talked about China. China, yes, it puts money over people. The highest violator of the human rights of the people, of the Chinese people, is the Chinese government. People don't have freedom to speak, don't have freedom to have expression. Is a country which puts this money over other people. China, so long as you don't interfere with other people, you kill your children, they give us money, Rudy, they will never ask. That's not the kind of country I would never want it. But what I want to say that other countries have gone over a process of killing each other. We cannot follow the same pattern, but we can do something good. People said Can something good come from Bethlehem or Nazareth? Yes, the Savior was born there. Can something come good from Kenya? Yes, there is handshake. And the world do not understand how people who are very protagonist, nobody mediated, and they agreed to take their country forward. That is the way to go. But on my parting shots, what I'm trying to say, in this COVID-19, we cannot have free and credible elections. Talking about scientific elections in Uganda or another country where we don't have infrastructure is a sham. But I'm a firm believer, let us have a debate. Let us have an engagement. Let us have a conversation. The way we are trying to do, we can find it. We did say here in this show, the thing which Sakacha could have done the other day could resign from that committee. He has resigned. That is how we change the societies, by setting pace. Even if the future appears bleak for the continent of Africa, still better days are in the future, because men and women like us are having Africa at our heart. We are discussing, we are giving solutions. A country like China, Dr. Masanga, don't quote it, go to Shanghai, how you see how they have polluted the environment. They are the highest contributor to climate change, global warming. They put money over people, and a country like that, I will never be with them, Dr. Masanga. My submission.
Thank you. Samson.
Yes, Miriam, as to whether we should not, I want to say that, yes, we need election, but it should not be a matter of life and death. We should be dealing with more pressing issues that we have, the issue to do with COVID, unemployment rate, infrastructure, and of course, empowering our system. The things to do with the election will just fall into place. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Daniel.
Yes, thank you, Miriam. And I'll start my submission by referring to what the good professor talked about, that the Western people brought us clothes. It's good, they brought us clothes, but we as a people, we still have naked intellectualism. We still have naked mannerism. We have not yet adapted to those standards they set. They brought us a way of governance, but unfortunately, we lack the capacity and the infrastructure to make sure that this mode of governance runs smoothly. So what do we do as a people? We need, first of all, to reevaluate our systems of governance. We need to pick a few takeaways from their way of governance, their democracy, and be able to amalgamate it with what we previously had as a people. Dr. Masanga talked about the monarchical system of government, which was working pretty well across the kingdoms. And remember, these kingdoms never shared any notes on how to govern. But as a people, our way of life as Africans, our common beliefs brought this kind of leadership together and made sure that people lived harmoniously, people prospered and shared a common future. So we can take away a few notes from what the foreigners brought and be able to join it together with what we had initially, so that we don't lose our identity. We fight with our brothers every election year because we lost our identity. We try to bring in a new culture which our people could not take quite easily. So before we talk about elections in Africa, let's first of all make sure that we do have proper structures. And that also reflects back to this time when we are having a COVID-19. We really do not need elections because, one, we are venturing into unfamiliar waters, something that we've never tried in Africa. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have any classical case study that we can be able to borrow from it that conducted a scientific election and it became successful. So that is my parting shot. We don't need election during this time. And in Africa, going forward, we first of all need to strengthen the system before we can be able to talk about conducting democratic elections.
Thank you
so much,
Miriam. Doctor, do you have anything else to add?
Before Miriam concludes, the question of cloth. Professor said cloth. Do we misuse the cloth? Do we misuse this cloth?
It depends.
They left us with cloth. Do you misuse it? How many times have you misused your clothes?
Depends
You
on
go to your
which
classroom and remove your
street.
tie and you remove your trousers.
Doctor,
Have you
depends
ever
on which street you're walking in Nairobi. You'll be
Do
shocked.
we walk in the streets of Nairobi naked? No. But elections kill us. As we speak now, Ruto is planning different things. The government is planning different things. Jermaine, why are you not talking? Now you are telling me we need it. You need what? Don't be like Kunule of the Lion and the Jewel. That because you have arrived from Britain, you have the best trousers, yet the trousers is short in the knees. You have read that book, Prof. Yes. The Lion and the Jewel. Nakunule boasted in the whole village that he was the best man. He went to London. Then one villager looked at him and said, but the trouser is very short. So we are in danger. Let's accept. As we speak right now, the temperature in Kenya, you see Halwale getting water, pouring water on a police officer with documents, with his book being wet. Are we not in danger? We see Washali insulting people on tribal segmentation. Do we need elections? Do we need governance of that nature? Yes, we might want elections. I can now come back to agree with you. Yes, but what format of election do we need? How many leaders in Africa go to the election with two notes, losing and a winning note? Very few. In my own country, Uganda, Museveni has never written a losing note. Do you need elections? Besigye has never written a losing note. Do you need elections? Do you need elections? In Tanzania, Lowassa had to flee and came to Kenya for refugee status to hide here because Magufuli said, well, Kwisha, do you need elections of that nature? In Malawi, Chakwera has locked up Mr. Mutharika. As we speak, Mutharika is in jail with others. Do you need elections? In Zimbabwe, Chamisa still says 4 years passed or 3 years passed. He still dreams of an election he won. Do we need elections? In Mali, Keita does not even recognize the opposition leader. Before the elections, he kidnapped him. And then one day to election, he released him. The people are on the streets of Bamako. You need elections. In Ivory Coast, Mr. Ouattara has lost all the candidates. Now it looks like Ouattara is going to be the running mate. And the owner is the sole man left in his party. Don't you think Ouattara is going to declare that he's running? Yet he told us he doesn't want. You need elections. That's Mali, Keita, Somalia. A war is erupting between Somalia, between the prime minister and the president on who should be, when should elections take place. The two want to square it out. The small man called Harrier also wants to become the president of Faramijo, against Faramijo. You need election in Somalia. What's the use of election there? There you are, in Uganda. Bob Wine does not even have a manifesto. Akiamungu, no manifesto. And guess what? But he has also called on Uganda to pick nomination papers. No manifesto. Now, do you need an election in that place? Let God help us. I submit elections in Africa, and the elections can only be conducted very properly in a place where there's social contract. We don't have social contract in Africa. What is a social contract? China has a social contract. Britain has a social contract. America has a social contract. After the voter has voted in America, he goes back home. He finds the check for unemployment sent through his doorbox. In Britain, if the check will be there, whether you have campaigned, whether you voted or not, that's the social contract, Africa, to stabilize African election that Gerard wants. You need a social contract background. We need to pay our retirement fathers money. Today is only Covid-19 which made us to pay the retirees, isn't it? How many people were paying them? A check of 8,000 shillings, somebody calls you from Meru to collect it. Then when you collect it, he said, bring 5,000, I give you the check of 8. Is this a social contract? A hospital doctor writes for you a note in Nairobi hospital, then refers you to his clinic to collect the medicine. Is that the social contract? No. I rest my case. Those who want elections in Africa can have it. For me, at the moment, I believe if Africa wanted to unite and be stronger, let it avoid competitive elections. Let them have consensus elections. Consensus, the way we select WTO, Director General, the way they will select Amina Mohammed as the candidate. Consensus. They are not going to put up this. They will only agree on paper that yes, Gerard, well-dressed man, tall 6-7 feet, thank you, you've taken it. You have convinced us. There will be no bloodshed in Geneva. Amina is not going to take arms and fight anybody. That is the type of thing that Africa needs, not competitive. I don't think competitive politics has reached a degree in this country where a man goes to steal all your money from the treasury, takes Kemeror and Emeror money, then he comes to tell you that vote for me, I'm a Christian from God, sent to be a Christian, to be able to lecture to you and read the verses. Bible, while we are reading the verses in the Bible, he's stealing. I close my case.
Thank you so much. Prof, it appears you have something to say. Doctor has summed it up for us. All right.
Yeah, Miriam, I am a firm believer of rule of law. I'm a firm believer that things should be done right. I'm a firm believer that we need to sit down and see on how we take the content of Africa forward. That is the only way. Participatory is the only way. Don't just vote over people, assume that you have got all the monopoly ideas. COVID-19 is here with us. But if we sit down, we can come out of this pandemic stronger. Dr. Masaka said that people were not receiving the cash transfers that COVID has given them. So out of this COVID-19, it will be able to unite us together and ask ourselves where we need to take Africa forward. Dr. Masanga said that I want direction. I have said here and again, and I want to repeat, democracy is not the best system of government, but there's none I know which can place democracy. If there's one, place it on the table and I can democracy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much there, Professor. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Samson. And thank you so much, Dr. David Matanga. I shall see you later for the Diaspora Dispatches, where we shall be looking at other news-making headlines across the continent. My name is Miriam Magoto. A very good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much, Miriam.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.